In November 1971, a man in a business suit bought a plane ticket with cash. He gave the name Dan Cooper. He was polite. He ordered a bourbon and soda. He paid for it, and he left a tip. 2 hours later, he jumped out of that plane into a freezing night over a forest with $200,000 strapped to his body. Nobody has seen him since. This is the only unsolved hijacking in the history of American aviation. And in January of this year, the FBI quietly released hundreds of pages of new files on it. Let's go through what they actually knew and what they never figured out. November 24th, 1971, the day before Thanksgiving. Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 305, a Boeing 727, is scheduled to fly from Portland, Oregon to Seattle, Washington. It's a short hop, 30 minutes in the air, 36 passengers board. One of them is a man in his mid-40s, dark suit, black tie, sunglasses, briefcase. He takes seat 18C near the back of the plane. Shortly after takeoff, he hands a note to a flight attendant. She assumes it's a phone number and puts it in her pocket without reading it. He leans toward her and says quietly, "You'd better look at that note. I have a bomb." The note demanded $200,000 in cash, 4 parachutes, and a fuel truck standing by in Seattle. In today's money, that ransom is roughly $1.6 million. He opened the briefcase. She saw what looked like red cylinders and wires. She did not need convincing. And here's the first strange thing about this man. He was calm, not nervous, not aggressive. He asked for what he wanted, and then he sat back and waited. The plane circled Seattle for 2 hours while the FBI assembled the money. Cooper let it circle. He never rushed anyone. On the ground, the FBI made one smart decision. They didn't hand over random bills. They handed over 10,000 $20 notes, and they photographed every single serial number first. Remember that. It matters later. The plane lands in Seattle. The money and the parachutes come aboard. And Cooper does something nobody expected. He lets all 36 passengers go. Every one of them. He keeps only the crew. Then he tells the pilots to take off again and fly to Mexico City. But he doesn't just say, "Fly to Mexico." He gives them instructions. Flaps at 15 degrees, landing gear down, cabin unpressurized, stay below 10,000 feet. These are the settings that let a Boeing 727 fly slowly and low, slow enough and low enough to jump out of. This is the moment the investigation changes, because a random criminal doesn't know those numbers. Somewhere over the dark forests of southwest Washington, Cooper tells the crew to stay in the cockpit. He lowers the rear staircase of the aircraft, a set of stairs that folds down from the tail mid-flight. At around 8 o'clock at night, the crew feels a change in cabin pressure, a small bump. When they land in Reno, the staircase is down, the rear of the plane is empty, and Cooper is gone. He jumped into a rainstorm, at night, into wilderness, wearing a business suit and loafers. So the manhunt begins. And this is where it starts to fall apart, because Cooper left almost nothing behind. Almost. On his seat, investigators found a black clip-on tie and a tie clip. They found 2 of the 4 parachutes still on board. 1 had been opened. 3 cords had been cut out of the canopy, likely to tie the money bag shut. They lifted 66 fingerprints from the cabin. Not one of them has ever been matched to a name. The FBI searched the forests, hundreds of soldiers, helicopters, grid searches through the winter. They found nothing. No parachute, no money, no body. For 9 years, this case is a total dead end. And then, in 1980, an 8-year-old boy is building a campfire on a sandbar on the Columbia River. He digs into the sand and pulls out 3 bundles of rotting $20 bills. The FBI checks the serial numbers against the list they photographed in 1971. They match. It's Cooper's money. About $5,800 of it, decayed but intact, buried in the riverbank. Here's the problem. That sandbar is not where the FBI thought Cooper landed, and the money was found in neat bundles with the rubber band still on, meaning it probably wasn't scattered by a violent impact. So, did the money wash there? Was it buried there? Did Cooper survive and lose it? Did he die on impact and the river carried it? Nobody knows. It's the only piece of the ransom ever recovered. The other $194,000 has never surfaced. Not one bill. Not in 55 years. Now, back to that tie. Decades later, a scientist named Tom Kay ran the clip-on tie under an electron microscope, looking for particles that had settled into the fabric. He found something odd: traces of pure, unalloyed titanium. In the 1970s, pure titanium was rare. It was used in aircraft manufacturing, in chemical plants, in a small number of specialized facilities. He also found cerium and strontium sulfide, materials linked to Boeing's supersonic transport program and to factories around Portland. Put that together with what we already knew. Cooper knew how to configure a 727 for a low, slow flight. He knew the plane had a rear staircase that could be opened in the air. He knew what to ask for, and he stayed calm doing it. The FBI's own newly released files describe him as methodical and knowledgeable about aircraft. This man almost certainly worked in or around aviation, which narrows it to a few 100,000 people. And the FBI has been trying to narrow it further ever since. Over the decades, roughly 1,000 suspects have been investigated, 24 or so seriously. One name keeps coming back: Richard McCoy II, a man who pulled off an almost identical hijacking just months after Cooper. Same method, same demands, same escape by parachute. McCoy was caught, he was convicted, and he was ruled out as Cooper by the FBI, though not everybody accepted that. Then, in 2022, a researcher searching McCoy's family property in North Carolina says he found a modified parachute and an old skydiving logbook. In 2023, the FBI took them into evidence, and then, nothing. No announcement, no conclusion. The FBI officially closed the D.B. Cooper case in 2016. 45 years of investigation ended without an answer. But in January of this year, they released hundreds of pages of previously unseen files. People expected a breakthrough. What the files actually contain is mostly interview reports, tips, suspects who were looked at and set aside. A new name surfaced: a pilot from Maine, questioned back in 1972 and never charged. No answer. Just more texture on the shape of a man nobody could ever see clearly. 55 years later, here is everything we know for certain. A man in a suit got on a plane. He was polite. He never hurt anyone. He asked for money, he let the passengers go, and he stepped off the back of a Boeing 727 into a black rainstorm. Somewhere out there, he either died in a forest and was never found, or he walked out and lived an entire ordinary life and told no one. The FBI photographed every serial number. They kept his tie for half a century. They interviewed 1,000 people, and they still don't know his name. If you want more unsolved cases, subscribe. New one every week.